Odunze talks about the new higher standards for the offense under head coach Ben Johnson. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, I want to look at the pending Chicago Bears free agents and which players have a chance of coming back to the team next season. And then we're also going to look at which Bears players need to step up the most for the Chicago Bears and kind of revamp what they did last season. We're getting into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, Darrel Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into it for today. And let's start off with Odunze's comments in regards to their new head coach, Ben Johnson, in which he talked about the new kind of standard that's being set now with the new head coach. He says this: "That's the confidence and play style that we have to continue into next season. The new stuff coming in the new staff coming in definitely understands that the players, everyone that's going to be in the locker room next year, will have to understand that too. There's a certain standard that we have to come out and play with consistently. Maybe that got a little lost in last season with the ebbs and flows, but next year we're looking forward to coming out and showing it through the end." A new standard is a great way to word it, right? Because that's what not only that you always want when you change head coaches. When you bring somebody in who has the reputation of a Ben Johnson, as well as the way that he's filled out this staff, yeah, there should be a new standard set by the team and maintaining a certain level of play. And that is one of the biggest knocks under the former head coach, Matt Eberflus, is that there was no standard set, mainly because him as a head coach that had no form of accountability for his actions and shortcomings. How can you have a set standard level of play when you don't have a set standard level of coaching or holding yourself accountable? That's what Ben Johnson is bringing here. That's why when Ben Johnson has talked about the importance of having accountability for himself and for his staff, that's why that is important, right? So, yeah, it's a new standard. There's a new level of play, new intensity that this team wants to unlock on both sides of the ball, for that matter. You brought in Dennis Allen as well on that defensive side of the ball. You brought in veteran coaches all over the place, line coaches, all this type of thing, that the Bears do need to get to a place of, as a franchise, having a certain level and standard of expectations and how you play. We've lacked that as a franchise for far too long. And if you want to become a winning franchise and have winning players and develop, the standards have to be high. And so, yeah, a new staff does bring in new standards. It brings in new energy. It brings in new expectations, right? And so when you have a staff full of people that want to all be great, that's the place that we need the alignment the best, is everybody in this organization from top to bottom is trying to do what they feel is the best to get the job done and to turn this into a winning franchise. So it's good to hear that there's a new level of excitement, that the players haven't even had their first practice yet. All they've had is conversations with their new head coach. But it's good to see that everybody is seeing that what needs to happen here. So we'll see what the future holds for the Bears. Overall, we want this team to be more than just solid. We want this team to have an identity, right? We're trying to establish a culture here. That's what we've lacked here for so long, and that's hopefully what Ben Johnson is going to bring. And even with the extension of Ryan Poles, hopefully that's what this brings, is building a culture, right? And I've seen the people that have said things like they're against the Ryan Poles extension, even my brother Brandon L. Jett. But here's the thing. I get it that everything is all judged ultimately by wins on the football field. But how you get to a place of having wins on the football field is just as important, because you have to have an ability to lock in and get those wins and get those dubs. So let's hope that that's what this franchise is finally on the path to getting and finally on the path to achieving. But you got to get there through your roster, through your coaching staff, and everything else. Now, with that said, I want to transition to the next topic that I want to talk about. The Chicago Bears have a number of free agents on the board next season, and I want to talk about what not only is the chance of these free agents coming back, but do we even want them back? First player at the top is Keenan Allen. There's been a lot made over, does Keenan Allen have a chance to really return here with the Chicago Bears and what they want to bring him back? Now, I think Ben Johnson is going to have a say in that as well, but I think also the money's going to have a say in that. The Chicago Bears have things that they need to improve and work on, right? And player and position groups that they're going to have to spend some money on. If Keenan Allen is going to want big-time money, which he may have come down off of. We'll end up seeing if he wants that. It's not going to come here with the Chicago Bears. I think the Bears can find a third wideout much cheaper than what reportedly some of the stuff Keenan Allen wants. Now, Keenan Allen had an up and down season here with the Chicago Bears. I think that's clear. And, everybody gets the buffer that, things were tough here last year with the Chicago Bears. But Keenan Allen did have 744 yards on 70 receptions, right? And he also had 7 touchdowns. He led the team in receiving touchdowns last year. So that's all there, and you can't take that away from him. But I think ultimately, like, if we're just going to be better utilizing of our offense overall and our tight ends, that, Keenan Allen is a player that it's a luxury to bring back, and I think you got other things to worry about first. Maybe Keenan Allen goes out and interviews and sits down with some teams. Maybe he doesn't come to the deal, and him and the Bears eventually get back to the table. But I personally think the Bears got other things that they need to worry about first, especially if Keenan Allen wants a big payday. Next up, Darrel Taylor. Now, this is an interesting one. I love Darrel Taylor, and especially what he's able to bring as far as a sack production per snaps played, right? Now, we had overall problems on the defensive line. We lost a lot of important players over the course of the season on that defensive line as well. But the way I look at it is this. I know people are enamored with some of the talk of other players that can come in, but Darrel Taylor had 3 sacks last year, right? Two forced fumbles as well. At 27 years old, 6'4", 267 pounds, I would not be mad at Darrel Taylor coming back here to the Chicago Bears. Now, I do think that they could look to explore the Khalil Max or things like that. I've already talked about it. I don't think that trading for Myles Garrett or anything like that's going to happen. But Darrel Taylor is a guy that I look at and say he wasn't a problem here. Now, I think we got some other things that we need to shore up. But if Darrel Taylor is willing to come back here, you may have to decide between him and Daniel Hardy, right? You may have to decide between that. But as a veteran who has just been able to get it done as far as sacks now, I would like him to come back on here, especially if we're able to make other improvements. And to see him under somebody like Dennis Allen, I would love to see that. So we'll see what the future ultimately holds. But Darrel Taylor is a guy that I wouldn't be too mad if the Chicago Bears bring back personally. It just is determined by what that deal is. Next up, Coleman Shelton. This is, I'm going to say right now, no on Coleman Shelton. I think that I want to see revamped offensive line from top to bottom, basically. Now, while Coleman Shelton has shown some flashes in some places, I just think that Coleman Shelton is just a guy between not being able to stay healthy and things like that. I think the Bears would be better off investing that money elsewhere, to be 100% honest with you. But that's just kind of my opinion on it. Next up, Tevin Jenkins. Man, the Tevin Jenkins aspect of things is really a difficult one to break down, right? Because Tevin Jenkins is a guy that when he's on the football field, he's largely productive, right? The injury history thing. That's a big thing when you talk about Tevin Jenkins potentially coming back to your team. And that's something that the Bears may just not be willing to take a chance on. So I do think that there's a higher probability than not that Tevin Jenkins is not returning to this team. But I also say this, if you can make key signings elsewhere and maybe even draft another versatile tackle or lineman who can play multiple positions, maybe you do bring Tevin Jenkins back on a 1-year prove-it deal or something like that, maybe a 2-year deal. But as far as long-term big money, I just don't think you can attach to Tevin Jenkins. And there may be a team that's willing to give him that, but that team probably shouldn't be the Chicago Bears. That's my personal opinion. You guys can let me know how you feel down below. Next up, Travis Homer. I don't want him back. No offense to Travis Homer. I think that when you look at the running back class in the draft, as well as some other guys that are available in free agency, I'd much rather the Bears do that than bring back Travis Homer. I think that he's a safe pick, of course, if you just want to kind of keep what you have going on. But I don't want to see Travis Homer back here personally. But that's just my own personal opinion. Next up, Jack Sanborn. Now, this is one that I would love to have this conversation with C-Dub. Jack Sanborn is a guy that, he initially showed some promise. That first year in his rookie year after we traded Roquan and he became the starting linebacker, he had great production as far as tackle rate and all that. Now, you moved him from the interior, right, from the middle linebacker to the outside with the acquisition of Tremaine Edmonds. I still like Jack Sanborn as a middle linebacker. I like him a lot. I think he still has tremendous potential. The question is there another team going to offer him a role and money maybe that the Bears would? Now, he's restricted, so the Bears have the right to bring him back if they want to. I think that's a safe bet that Jack Sanborn does come back for the Chicago Bears personally, and we'll see what the future holds for him. Larry Borom. Larry Borom has shown some shit. right? And by some shit, I mean some good shit and a lot of bad shit. I think at this point, Larry Borom, even if you're trying to bring him back as a depth piece, where I think he's perfectly okay at, I think that the Bears are trying to upgrade their offensive line overall to where we're going to get better than just perfectly okay. So I don't think Larry Borom is going to be back. There were some reports that they were even shopping him at the trade deadline last year. So because of that, I'm going to say this. If I had to guess, I don't think that Larry Borom is going to come back. Next up, Jalen Jones and Josh Blackwell, two restricted free agents when it comes down at that cornerback and secondary position. Here's the thing. I'll say this. I do think that there's a chance that both these guys do come back to the Chicago Bears just because, when you look at the potential that they've had, right, and the fact that the Bears overall took a big step backwards, last year in health and things like that, I do see a chance of when they come back. But you also have a guy, in the wings that could do something. Now, you lost Reddy Stewart to the Vikings, right? The Vikings signed him, and with his tremendous upside, which I'm still surprised that the Chicago Bears let him go to the Vikings on a futures contract. But because they did, unless they're drafting a cornerback, I can see both these guys coming back. But especially Blackwell, maybe I'll lean towards Blackwell, maybe over Jalen Jones, but we'll see what the future holds there. Next up, Jacob Martin. I don't think he's going to come back. I think that, you're going to make a signing of a veteran or you're going to draft an edge. I don't necessarily see Jacob Martin coming back here for the Chicago Bears. Matt Pryor, nope, don't see him coming back either. DeAndre Carter, maybe as a special teams, maybe not to be the wide receiver, but we'll see what happens there. Daniel Hardy, this is another guy. Daniel Hardy, Doug Kramer, and Bill Murray. They're all guys I kind of look at the same. They have a chance to come back. Daniel Hardy's one I would really love to see come back here. I love the idea of continuing to develop him and Austin Booker. But, depending on what you do if you draft another edge or if you get another big-time edge, maybe you don't bring him back. But Daniel Hardy's one that I'd love to see come back. Doug Kramer, it's like not as a fullback. Now, we never really got to see him snaps at center, and he hasn't been able to stay healthy. But I do understand that there's something that you may not want to lose him for nothing. Right, so they may give Daniel Hardy another shot to come back. We'll see. Bill Murray, he's shown some flashes, maybe as a practice squad guy, but I think we're going to improve that offensive line overall to a way that I just don't know if I see him coming back personally. So there are other guys, of course, Jake Curran, don't see coming back. Tommy Sweeney, don't see coming back. Colin Johnson, don't see coming back. So I don't see those guys coming back for the Chicago Bears, but overall, those are guys that I'm looking at and saying they have a chance of what I think on the pending free agents from the Chicago Bears and what they can do. But the next thing that I want to talk about, right? I know there's a big thing to talk about, a lot of guys that, could be coming to the scene, whether draft or free agency. I want to talk about some of the other guys here that's on this roster that finished the season on this roster that either need to see what's going to happen. I think that Tyson Bagent is somebody to look out for, right? Because if the Bears, they could look to move him. I just think that that's a possibility, that they could look to move him if any team comes knocking and saying, hey, we don't have a quarterback. You want to take a shot at him as being maybe our young quarterback as the future. Tyson Bagent has already said that he has things that he wants to accomplish as a quarterback at the NFL level. So look out for that, right? Now, outside of that, when you're looking at a new coaching staff coming in, right? And I think that DeAndre Swift is a guy that he got a bad rap. A lot of people are kind of over DeAndre Swift, but when you go back and look at the season, the numbers, he was actually productive. 959 yards on the ground last year and 6 touchdowns. Then when you turn around and look at him in the air as well, no touchdowns in there, but he did have 386 yards. We're talking about almost 1,400 yards from scrimmage from DeAndre Swift, right? Almost 13, close to 1,400 yards from DeAndre Swift. Under Ben Johnson, if you can get the running back to pair with him in the backfield and change the offensive line, I think that DeAndre Swift can have a really big season with the Chicago Bears. They paid him for a reason for that. I think that Swift can have that. People have said, well, if Swift was this type of in Shane Waldron's system, I think that Swift can be a really good dual threat running back. And for that, I think that under Ben Johnson, we can look for DeAndre Swift to have a bounce back, even though the stats were solid. But I think that he can look to have a bounce back year as far as perception for the Chicago Bears next year as well. And then, of course, listen, I'm going to say this. We are looking for growth from Caleb Williams. Yes, he had the best statistical season from any Bears rookie quarterback in history. He was sacked 68 times, a portion of those sacks on him, 6 interceptions, 20 touchdowns, but you, of course, the overthrows, right? Those type of things. We all said that this offseason was built around bringing in people to help Caleb Williams. You want to see the growth and development from Caleb in this offseason. He's another guy that, isn't a threat to be moved or anything like that. He's not going to be a free agent anytime soon, but the growth we need to see from Caleb Williams under this new regime, and overall, as a second-year quarterback, we need to see tremendous growth from him. And I think Odunze is another one that could grow naturally with Caleb Williams. Him and DJ Moore's numbers. DJ Moore still had 966 yards receiving last year. Shout out to DJ Moore there. But they still have a lot that they can do better and that we can improve. Route running, route trees, all those type of things could be much better for this team. And I think that we're going to see much better from those guys overall as well, right along with Cole Kmet. After a breakout season in 2023, Cole Kmet's 2024 season could be labeled as confusing and disappointing at best. Now, some of that isn't on him. He was phased out of the game at certain points of times, especially under Shane Waldron for some reason. And I think that Ben Johnson is going to be a guy that really does look to get the most out of Cole Kmet. 474 yards last year, receiving 4 touchdowns. I can easily see Cole Kmet having upwards of 800 yards next year. And that may be why, again, it kind of allows you not to bring back Keenan Allen as well. But Cole Kmet is another guy I think is going to have a really big season next season under Ben Johnson. And I look for him to have just take it off, right? The next guys, let's look towards the defense, right? Who on the defense needs to have a much better season? I'm going right to Tyreek Stevenson. After that Hail Mary play, he had some flashes, but he never really had that same edge that we saw in his rookie year from Tyreek Stevenson. This is a guy who, rightfully so, got completely wasted by Chicago media because of that Hail Mary play and shit like that. But Tyreek Stevenson hopefully learned from this mistake. Having somebody that's going to actually hold him to a standard like Dennis Allen is going to be really good. And I think both Tyreek Stevenson and Kyler Gordon are in for amazing years next year. Kyler Gordon's going to have a Pro Bowl level season next year. With the way that Dennis Allen has already talked about how he wants to use him, which is just, it's going to be even more versatile than what he was used under Matt Eberflus. I think that Kyler Gordon's going to have an amazing year next year. And then the next guy up I want to talk about, Gervon Dexter. Gervon Dexter had an amazing season, 5 sacks last year. And while a lot of people are comparing and saying that the Bears missed on Jalen Carter, go and look at Gervon Dexter's numbers, both in the win rates and things like that, the advanced numbers, as well as the box score numbers. Gervon Dexter's right there as being as productive as Jalen Carter. He's just on not as good of a team and not as good of a defensive line. But Gervon Dexter, I think the leap that he showed from year 1 to 2, we're going to see an equal leap from year 2 to 3. I think with growth, Andrew Billings staying healthy, overall growth on that defensive line, and better overall, more aggressive play calling with blitz structures and things like that, that Gervon Dexter is set to have a really big season for the Chicago Bears next year. And I would not be surprised at all if we're looking at Gervon Dexter, maybe even getting in some Pro Bowl conversation next year. I know, Hayes is being a homer here. Hey, I'll put on my homer hat. That's fine, because I really do think that there is a chance that happens. I think that there's a level of that can absolutely happen for Gervon Dexter, because he's going to put in that work. Already transformed his body from year 1 to year 2. He spent this year being a very productive for the Bears, and I can see this going a whole nother step for him next year. But another player that we need better from is Montez Sweat. We just got to have better production from him. I know all the advanced analytics loved him as far as win rate in the past and all this. That's going to come be having somebody on the opposite side of him that can garner more double teams, but we need better from Montez Sweat next season. And I don't think that that's a problematic thing to say. You can both acknowledge that, hey, there were some things that were going on last year that affected him. But listen, we need more. He said 9 tackles for a loss is cool, great, whatever. 5.5 sacks is cool, great, or whatever. But we need more from that. He's the anchor on that defensive line for the Chicago Bears. We need better from Montez Sweat. I think that he can have a really good season. And he's one that I'm looking for that needs to step up some as well for the Chicago Bears next year. Another player that I want to talk about is Jalen Johnson. I know that he had a Pro Bowl season. Great, he deserved it. But towards the end of that season last year, and again, I'm giving everybody a little bit of an excuse because of just the turmoil around the team, all that type of stuff that was going on. But we need better from Jalen Johnson as well next year on that defensive side of the ball. But these are the players that I think really need to step up. I'm also throwing Zach Pickens and Noah Sewell in there. These are 2 young guys that the Bears drafted to be kind of parts of the Bears' future that haven't shown an ability to do that consistently yet. We need to see that from these guys. And hopefully these guys can bring it a little bit more consistently as well. And If we get it, great. If we don't, we may have to start looking at something, right? Noah Sewell has not been able to stay healthy. He's not been able to get on the field very much. Zach Pickens, same thing. Hasn't been able to stay healthy. Hasn't gotten on the field as much as that we would like, because there are going to be guys potentially as soon as this year that are coming in that are trying to take your spot. So let's see if these guys can step up, especially, as I said, I trust Dennis Allen. I trust Garrett. I trust these guys to evaluate, execute, and see what they have and develop, right? To see what they have in these young guys on this defensive line. But we need growth in those areas, and let's hope that we can get it for the Chicago Bears. But let me know what you guys think on everything that we covered today. Who are some of the guys that and free agents that you see coming back? Who are some free agents you would absolutely not want to see come back to the Chicago Bears? Who are some guys on your list that were on the team last season that you want to see more from this upcoming year, and they just step up under the new coaching regime? Let me know all that down below. Make sure you guys are following the show at Chi Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that's thanks to you lovely and beautiful people. And I can see you guys on the next one. Chi-Town up, Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.